That'll. We got a lot to cover tonight, so we're going to try to be pretty quick about this. Just to let you know, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be modifying our sequence of the meeting a bit because we want to make sure Chris Hill, our county judge, has plenty of time to present. Okay, let's go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance, everyone. I pledge allegiance to the flag of America, to the republic, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Go straight to our presentation from our county commissioner, Mr. Chris Hill. Thank you for making the time for us. For those of you on the Zoom meeting, due to some technical difficulties, you will not be able to see the presentation, but you will be able to hear Chris. The presentation will be available once we publish the YouTube on this in about a week. So apologies for that for those of you on Zoom, but hey, sometimes it happens. Chris, the microphone is yours. Thank you so much for making time for us.
You bet. Thank you for having me. Welcome, folks, and I appreciate your hospitality, letting me join you. I've been a member of the club in the past, and I paid my dues up again tonight. So I didn't get a receipt from these guys. That's why I figured I'd mention it to all of you, just in case. You got my back, right? Well, let me start by passing out this clipboard. If you would like a copy of today's presentation, if you're watching on Zoom and you'd like me to send it to you, or you're here in the room, you'd like me to send it to you afterwards, you're welcome to put an email address down and we'll email it out to you later. And it's also your way to sign up if you'd like to get email updates from me in the future. You can always unsubscribe later, but that's a way to subscribe. Well, I thought I'd give you an update on your county, how things are going here in Collin County. And if you would like to ask questions during the presentation, if you'd like to ask questions at the end, I'm certainly going to save time, but I look forward to having a conversation with you. So thank you again for the opportunity to visit. One of the first things I always start with when I'm talking to a group is just a little update on the county, how things are going. It used to be important to share with folks how things were changing. Nowadays, everyone knows how things are changing because everything's different today than it was yesterday. It seems like it's changing so fast around here that it's just remarkable. You're not surprised when you hear any of these statistics. Today, Collin County is over 1.2 million people. We are one of the fastest growing counties in the United States. In fact, for the last several years, we've been hovering right around number 2 in the fastest growing county in the nation, behind either Harris County here in Texas or behind Maricopa County out in Arizona, Phoenix. Those two counties do add a lot of folks as well, but they're significantly larger than us. We are and this is in raw numbers, by the way. This is the fastest growing counties in actual population change, not in percentage, but they're adding to a much bigger base. Those raw numbers. So for us, the change is about 30,000 people a year. It's just dramatic here in Collin County. Let me break that down for you just a little bit. Well, here and on this slide, it shows you from July 2013 to July 2024, we've increased by more than 370,000 people. But the next part is really the most remarkable. It's the pace that we've been growing at. 98 people a day now for 10 and a half years. 98 people a day. So just 98 people doesn't seem like that much. There's maybe 98 people in the restaurant tonight, but that's 98 new people that are going to be moving in tomorrow that aren't here today, and the next day and the next day for the last 10 and a half years, which is just remarkable. And of course, this is not a surprise to any of us. One of the online websites, wallethub.com, came out with their survey of the best real estate markets in the United States, and they listed basically everybody in Collin County made the list. McKinney and Frisco were rated number 1 and number 2 in the nation. You look down, it's 6 is Allen, Texas. Plano's number 24. Chief, where's Fairview? I'm not really... A little bit farther down. Okay. But the secret's out all across the country. Folks know that Collin County is a wonderful place to live. And I think they're all trying to live here, and they all want to be your neighbor, quite frankly. And we see them all on the highway. So this is the part that really breaks it down in a unique way for us. At least it does for me. It says 134 new residents last year, every day last year. Of course, that 98 was over the last 10 and a half years. But think about that in terms of households. The Census Bureau tells us that there's 2.8 people in the average household in our county. So 98 people, 2.8 per, or perhaps the 34 or the 134 there, 34 new housing units that we need a day. Every day. So today we need 34 new homes that people need to get keys to so that they can move in. And tomorrow we need 34 new. And now that could be in a house, it could be an apartment, it could be a mobile home, whatever it is, wherever somebody's pitching a tent in the county, we need 34 more of those than we did yesterday. And again tomorrow and the next day. That really strikes me whenever we start to think about the growth and the pressure that's on all of our municipal infrastructure that we see. That's why we wait in line at the bank, and that's why we wait in line at the grocery store right there. All right, tonight I thought I'd share with you a little bit about my priorities as your county judge. Thank you for the opportunity to serve in that role. I've been serving as your county judge since I was elected in 2018. I ran for election. Thank you for the opportunity. Right around the corner. So I started January 1 of 2019, and then right around the corner was 2020. And of course, we were watching COVID spread across the Eastern hemisphere in 2019, and then saw that it came to us in 2020. If you want to talk about that, I'd be happy to. I'll leave time for questions, but it's a bit past that now. But that was in my first term. You reelected me in 2022 to serve, and I'm in that second term right now. And these are the priorities that I'm working on every day as your county judge. And there's a lot more that goes into the job, but these are the items that I consider some of the most important here in our county. First, public safety and criminal justice. I think this is really the most important thing we do at the county level. This is the bedrock of who we are and the foundation of what we do at the county. Most of you live in the city limits somewhere in the county. We have 30 different municipalities in the city. They're the 30 of the best cities in the country. And they deliver the services that you're used to, like the streets and the water and trash and the libraries. We don't do those. Streets, perhaps, with county roads, but we don't really take care of those city services that you're used to out in the county. The county government is really the foundation that our cities build upon, and public safety and criminal justice really are, I think, the benchmarks of what we do, from running the county jail, the county courthouse, the sheriff's office, the constables, the district attorney, all that goes into keeping our community safe and making sure that we pursue liberty and justice for all. We want those to be the hallmark of who we are here in Collin County. So just a little bit about our investment in law enforcement. From 2016 to 23, you can see the investment that we've made in your tax dollars in our 3 law enforcement departments, the sheriff's office, the constable's office, and the district attorney's office. Just taking the red bar, the sheriff's office from 2016, $45 million on the left, all the way to this most recent 2023, $71 million. We're spending more money, keeping more of your tax dollars, keeping our community safe. Now, part of that, of course, everyone would say everything costs more than it did back in 2013. But part of that is because we're a growing county and we're intentionally investing more. These are just some selected personnel, the numbers for you from 2014, the number of detention officers. We had 208 detention officers. Now, 2024, 291. I met with a group today out of California that they help children and women escape from basically the sex trades, and help them get free. And they do that in California. And they were talking to us here about how they do that. And And they were lamenting that in California, one of their biggest problems they have is they can't get their law enforcement, their prosecutors, to prosecute those that are guilty, those that are preying on folks in the community. And I told her, I said, well, she asked a little bit about our focus, and I told her, I said, well, when our jail fills up, I'll just be honest with you, my philosophy on that is I'm going to build a bigger jail. If I need more rooms, if I need more beds, we're going to build a bigger jail. We're going to make sure that we do the first things first. And here in our community, we're going to keep our community safe. There's no end to stories on the nightly news of cities and counties all across our nation that have lost their way when it comes to law enforcement. They've decided to get cute with law enforcement. They've decided to seek some kind of social justice reform, and they don't focus on enforcing the laws of their community. We're not going to do that here. And I don't know if you agree or disagree, but I'll just tell you that's what I'm about, is that we're going to make sure and focus on the first things first. And so we are building a bigger jail as it is right now, as it turns out. We're getting close to opening up that larger jail. We've got more detention officers coming online. Same thing with deputy sheriffs. We've added more deputy sheriffs to our sheriff's office and more prosecutors. We're going to make sure that as our population grows, we're going to grow with it and make sure that we've got the folks we need on the team. But not only are we spending more as we grow, we're spending more on law enforcement as a piece of the whole. And this slide I just shared to let folks know that we are keeping up with the demands of our growth. In fiscal year 2016 on the left, if you just really focus on the orange slice, which is all other departments other than law enforcement, other than the sheriff, other than the constables, other than the district attorney, that made up about 80% of our budget, 80.7. Fast forward to FY 2023 and all others made up 78.5. So what does that mean? It means that our law enforcement, not only are we spending more on law enforcement, we're spending more as a percentage of the whole. Now, we won't continue to do that indefinitely. We've got to focus on the other things too, but we're being very intentional about this, which all of us as your elected officials have our own priorities that we give you, that we tell you, but this is what I've always said is my highest priority. And we're focusing your tax dollars on it. Here's another look at some of that same information. The dotted black line is the total county budget indexed back to 2016. So you can see how the total budget of the county is growing over the years since 2016. And then you can see the sheriff's office, the constable's office, and the district attorney's office, how they're growing. And it's the same information that was on the other chart, just showed in a different way. They're growing faster than the rest of the budget. Well, what does that lead to for us? And this is really important. Not only have many of our cities been called best cities in the country to live in, but they've also been recognized as some of the safest cities in the country. And we all really appreciate that. Frisco and McKinney were listed as the safest cities in the United States in 2023. Plano made number 5. And I'm confident that Fairview was on the list if they had just been a little bit larger. They just probably didn't make the cutoff. But in fact, many of our smaller towns don't make these kinds of surveys because they don't have the minimum population, but we know that they are also fantastic cities. All right. Well, another topic that we hear about frequently, especially right now, especially tonight, we all have something else going on. They asked me if I was going to race out and watch the debate, and I don't know about you, but I've already made up my mind, so I'm good. If you haven't made up your mind yet, tonight's a big night. You can, if you want to watch it tomorrow on tape delay, you can. But as for me, I'm good. But election integrity is a really big issue for us. We want to know that our vote counts. We want to know that our elections are honest, that they are secure. And while we can't do anything ourselves to make sure that happens in Georgia or Florida or Ohio, we want to know that in our community, that our elected officials, that our appointed officials, that our county employees are doing right by us and right by our vote. And this is a really important issue. Sometimes folks have a hard time understanding why I put it number 2 on my list of priorities. Everyone gets criminal justice and law enforcement, public safety. But really, when I start to talk about it, I get philosophical because I tell folks that right after the safety of our community, election integrity is key to who we are as a republic. If we don't have faith in our election process, our electoral process, if we don't have faith that our voice counts the way it's supposed to, one person, one vote, then we lose much more than just the result of an election. It's the bedrock of who we are as a nation and as a republic. And so that's why it's critical to all of us. For me, I tell folks the confidence of our elections are built on security, on accuracy, and timeliness. And that's what we focus on here in Collin County. We want to make sure that every one of our voting booths, voting locations is secure. We want to make sure that every single vote that's taken is accurate and we can get results out timely. That's really important to us. Following the 2020 presidential election, there was a lot of talk about election integrity across the nation, including here in Texas. The governor of Texas came out and said they were going to perform a full audit of 4 Texas counties. Collin County was chosen as one of those. Collin and Tarrant were both chosen as Republican counties for that audit. And there was a lot of work that was done over that, the intervening months afterwards, back and forth, information that was provided to the Secretary of State's office, what they came down and wanted to see and wanted to audit. And when they were done with their report, it's still available online if you'd like to see it. But I was very proud. This quote comes directly from that. Collin County proved to be the model of how to run elections in Texas. We've got a great team and they do a good job. They made it clear that we had things to work on too, not perfect, but the model for the state. And I was very proud of our team. All right, the next priority that I've had ever since I ran as county commissioner. Back in 2013, 2012 was my first election for public office. I ran as the county commissioner for precinct 3 and had the opportunity to serve in that role until running for office for county judge. And even in that very first campaign, when people would ask, why are you running? This was one of my priorities. Even then, limited government and low taxes, low property taxes, making sure that we do everything we can to spend every dollar the wisest way possible. Prior to serving in public office, I served in the corporate world. I'm an accountant, I'm a CPA, I worked as a corporate accountant, and I wanted to bring those skills to bear on our county government. So let's talk a bit about property taxes. The county government in Texas, county government is funded by property taxes. And quite frankly, I know all of you feel the burden of property taxes. It goes right along with 2.8 people per household, 98 people per day, 34 homes per day. All of that pressure on our population is felt in our housing market. We don't have enough housing supply here in Collin County, here in North Texas for all the people who want to live here. And that puts dramatic pressure on our prices, which is great when we sell, but not great when we buy, and not great when we pay our county property taxes. Well, this is just dramatic for me. When I look at this and see what the average home value is here in the county, you look over on the left at 2017, 317,000. Now to this most recent year, the average home in Collin County is now at $600,000 value. It's just remarkable. And now the new homes that you're seeing built in so many neighborhoods across the county are probably outpacing that 600,000 in value and in price. Just really remarkable. Those last 3 years is when it's really taken a big jump. We've seen our housing prices just dramatically go up. There's been a lot of talk about whether the appraisal district is doing this correctly, whether they're setting our prices to market value, which is what they are tasked with by the state of Texas. You know this, the appraisal district is not part of county government. They're called the Collin County Appraisal District, but they're not part of Collin County government. They're their own independent entity, and they have one job: to determine what every piece of property is worth in the open market. And quite frankly, because of so many people moving here, we're not surprised that our values are going up, but maybe we're surprised when we see how much. Well, that leads to our property tax bills. And you'll notice in the last 3 years, the property tax bills have gone up with the property tax values. From 2016 to 2021, I was tremendously proud of our property tax bills here in Collin County hovered right at $630 all of those years. For year after year after year, we were voting to keep your taxes level, adopting the no new revenue tax rate, no tax increase tax rate, which meant when your value went up, the tax rate has to come down so that it offsets that. And I was very proud of that record. In the last 3 years, the county has raised your property tax bill, and you look at it in the chart, it's quite significantly. Now, it's not significant in one sense from $600 to $700, but you can tell right away just looking at the chart that it began to jump. Now, I did point out to you that low property taxes was one of my priorities when I ran for office. And I point out to you now that I voted no to all three of those tax increases in the last 3 years. I was outvoted by the county commissioners who voted yes to raising taxes. And that's the way it goes in our system. But I was outvoted 4-1 for an increase in your property tax bills. I believe, and folks have asked me, so, well, how would you provide for a growing county without raising taxes? And I said, well, quite frankly, it's pretty simple. If I don't have as much money to spend, I'm going to have to spend less money. Now, where we make those cuts and where we make those decisions, that's why we get elected to do this job. But that's my commitment, is to keep our taxes lower. The first principle that we know of every single year when we come into the budget workshop, all of those people that have been moving here, 98 people per day, those are brand new taxpayers. They don't, even if I keep your taxes the same, I get all of those taxes on top of that because they weren't here last year. Those are new taxes. And that brings us in the range of $10 million a year, every year, in new tax revenue. So when I say I'm going to have to increase the number of deputy sheriffs and the number of prosecutors and the number of jailers and the number of clerks and so forth, when I know that I'm going to have to hire more employees because our population is growing, I'm planning on using that $10 million from all those new taxpayers to do that. And that's important. And I'm keeping things, my model, my vision is to keep things steady for our existing taxpayers while we add on incrementally due to the new growth. And we did that for about 6 years. So we're going to get back to that. I'm going to fight to get back to that. But I have been outvoted these last 3 years. Nonetheless, what does Collin County do for me? For that $800 tax bill, what does Collin County provide for me as a taxpayer? I always throw this slide in. That way it gives me a little chance to take a break and get a drink while you read that whole list. Yeah, just a few things. Just a few things the county does for you. There you go. If you raise cattle and you need to register your brand to make sure nobody rustles your cattle, you're going to come down to the county office to register that brand. Everything from the medical examiner's office, the elections office, emergency management, all of the courts that you know of, truancy services, veteran services, weddings, just many of the things that the county services the county government provides day in and day out. Again, if you wanted to get a copy of this, you can look back through this list and see all those things. And if you ever need help with one of those, you can either contact me in my office, or you can look us up on the county website to see all the different things we do. And if you want to prepare your questions now for Q&A time, just look at the list and figure out what you want to ask me. But right along with how we set your tax rate with limited government and low taxes, right along with that is this commitment to financial excellence and financial integrity. We have to be about that in order to serve you well. And I'm proud of our team here in Collin County. Just some of the different groups that recognize financial integrity in local government. The Distinguished Budget Award, 18 years in a row. The Achievement of Excellence Award in purchasing for 26 years. Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Reporting for 43 years. And by both of the bond rating groups that rate our finances, we are AAA. We are the highest that we can get, highest recognition we can get, and from both of them whenever we go out to the market to sell bonds for the infrastructure that we need to build. So I'm proud of that. Our team, we've got good folks on our team. As an accountant myself, I'm proud of the folks that do accounting for us in the county, and that helps us ultimately pay less on the interest on those bonds, saves us money. Now, infrastructure development is the area that probably most of us encounter in county government, whether that's most of you probably are not visiting the jail very often. You're not visiting the courthouse that often, but you're driving our streets every day. And while we are not responsible for the city streets, we work closely with the state of Texas in the management and the planning for our highway system here in the county. And so the infrastructure development is a significant responsibility for us. In 2023, the voters did approve a new bond program. And that bond has provided us $261 million for the expansion of our courthouse and our jail. Those are going on now. So if you ever drive by the courthouse, the back of the building, or the jail, the side of the building, you'll see the construction that's going on there. $5.7 million for the animal shelter expansion, $13 million for the new medical examiner facility. We're about to break ground on that. $22 million for parks and open space, and $380 million for roads and bridges. And the key to that is non-tolled roads and bridges. I tell folks all the time, I'm not against toll roads in principle. Toll roads in principle are quite democratic, if you will. When I'm driving to Frisco, I will choose to pay the $2 and get on the toll road and get there 2 minutes faster. My wife, if she's driving, will choose to take 2 minutes longer and save the $2. It's the most democratic tax we have. But we are paying that tax here in Collin County at a higher rate than anyone else in the state of Texas. We have 4 highways in Collin County. 3 of them, 75%, are tolled. We have done our part. The state of Texas told Collin County that if we would agree to build these roads with tolls, they would not overlook us in the state budget and the state in financing our regular highways. And we feel like we've been overlooked. We feel like they have not provided the funds necessary to Collin County that they have to Bexar County or to Travis County, to others who don't have anywhere near the tolls that we have. You can't get around this county without paying. You can't get, unless you want to go slow like my wife, but you can't get anywhere on a consistent basis across this county without paying tolls. And so, again, I tell folks that the tolls aren't bad in and of themselves, but we've done our part here in Collin County. And I will continue to tell Austin that we are not going to support any more toll roads here in Collin County, that we're going to look for the state of Texas to help us. And that message has been received here of late, and I'm very thankful for that. In this most recent federal budget and state budget, they have set aside significantly more funds for Highway 380, which will be our new freeway here in the county as it goes from Denton County all the way to Hunt County. And here in McKinney, as you know, that was a big discussion for a long time. Where would the route be? That discussion continues in Princeton, just like it did previously in McKinney, and has not been determined yet. But ultimately, from county line to county line, that will be our next major freeway. And so I'm grateful that we've gotten a lot more dollars out of the federal transportation budget and the state transportation budget to help us with that. We have shown as a local community, we're willing to do our part, because every one of these, every one of the funds that comes down from the state or from the federal government requires matching money. And if they give us 80%, we've got to come up with 20. So we have taken the approach that we're going to use our local bond dollars to make sure that we're ready for every opportunity. When the federal government says we've got monies to award, we want to be right there ready to go, saying we can bring our local money and we're ready to go. Don't overlook us on any projects. And that has helped us. And so we're seeing some fruits of that this year and last year, and I'm grateful for that. All right. And then the last area I wanted to talk about is emergency preparedness. This is another priority of mine. I would say that it wasn't a priority of mine when I served as a county commissioner, for obvious reasons. Number one, the county judge is the head of emergency management in every county in Texas. I'm the statutory emergency management director. And so I didn't have have that responsibility as a commissioner. But for a second reason, in 2020, I really began to see, okay, I've got decisions that I have to make, that I'm tasked with making when it came to COVID, and had to really look at emergency management in a new way. Other than the COVID experience that we had, the biggest emergencies we've had in our county have been tornadoes. We've had several across the county since I've been in office. And so this is an area that we take very seriously. We do have an emergency management director who works for me. So I'm in the state law, I'm responsible, but quite frankly, he's much more skilled than I am. So I appoint him as my director of emergency management. And he's got all the certifications, the degrees, and the training, and works professionally in that capacity. And then I make decisions when necessary. So emergency preparedness is also an area where you come in as a group and as citizens. It's an excellent area for us, excellent service for us, having groups like the club here and in Plano and in Richardson, others that spend their time and their talents being ready to respond. That is, it's an area that I have a newfound appreciation for now as the county judge. All right. So just a review real quick, an overview of the responsibilities of the county and my priorities as your county judge. And I'd be happy to take questions on any of those or anything you saw on that list of what we do for you or anything else. Yes, sir.
Just want to know where I go to get that $1 property tax. I feel sorry for you.
Yeah, I did forget to clarify, didn't I? That is your county property tax bill. You also have the pleasure of paying property taxes to your city, if you live in one, your school district, wherever you live, and in the county, if you live in Collin County, to the college district. So we know that we're only about 10% of the total bill. And here in Collin County, you pay all of your property taxes to the county tax collector, and then he takes it and parcels it out to all the other districts. That's done as a convenience. It's not that way everywhere. Some places you live, you got to pay each entity. You got to write them each a check. Here, you make one check or escrow, and then it all gets parceled out. But the downside to that is people think they're paying the whole bill to the county. And I said, no, just a little piece, a little piece. But yes, I'm with you. Yes, sir.
Integrity. A couple of weeks ago, I think you had a agenda item on your council agenda to talk about paper ballots versus the ballot machine. And I think I read a preliminary article on that saying you really didn't have much of a process staying on. You might listen to what's going on there.
Yes, yeah, you bet. Thank you for that. Let me clarify first. I think this is what you meant, but I always like to clarify. We have paper ballots in Collin County. So the question is, are we going to have paper ballots that are printed out by a machine, or are we going to have paper ballots where you circle in the circle, you color in the circle? And that's really important because if you've been in this county for 10 years, you remember when we used to not have, we didn't have paper ballots at all. You would press the screen to make your selection, and you get to the last page of the screen and it was cast my vote, and that was it. It went off into the ether and you never saw it again. There was nothing that you got to see. It was all electronic and there was no record of your vote. I didn't like that. And in 2018, the county switched over to having a paper ballot. It was really important. So if you voted here in the county before, you know this, you make your selections on the screen. When you're ready, it prints it out. That machine that prints out your ballot is not connected to the internet, is not connected to tabulating. It is a standalone, choose my ballot, choose my selections, and print out my selections. That's all it does. And if you take that, and we've had folks think that that's their receipt for voting, and they take that home with them. If you take that home with them, you did not vote. You came and you made lots of choices, and you took those choices home with you. You've got to take that and put it in the machine to cast your ballot. Most people do that. In fact, our workers, Larry, where are you at? Our workers are very, oh, fantastic. Thank you for telling me that. So our folks who work our elections are very good at making sure our folks know how to operate it and they don't take those ballots home. But the question to the real heart of your question, I think, is about the process. And are we going to have the computer fill it out for us, or are we going to fill in the dots by hand? And I made a motion to move to the system where you fill it out by hand. Both would be paper ballots. Both of those can go into the same tabulator. And this is really important for us. We have so many votes. This presidential election, we're going to have some 650,000 votes cast in November. State law says that we have to provide our results within 24 hours after the polls close. So I've been asked by many folks, hey, we need to hand count those ballots. We just can't do it in 24 hours with any type of integrity, with any type of accuracy. And the time, if we're going to be timely, we're going to have to, we're just going to be so hurried that the other two go by the wayside. Well, timeliness, in my opinion, is third on that list because it's the third most important. Accuracy is most important. Security is more important, but we still have to be timely by the law. So hand counting is really not practical for us. We need to be able to tabulate the votes by sliding them into a tabulator. Both of these types of hand ballots can do, paper ballots can do that. Hand marked and machine marked can go through the tabulator. We've been working with one of our state senators here in the county, Senator Bob Hall, asking him to help us because right now, after the election is over, the Secretary of State will tell us that we are required, they'll name 3 of our precincts and 1 race. So they may tell us the agriculture commissioner in precincts 5, 10, and 15. And we will take all of those ballots and we will hand count them and compare them against the machine totals to make sure they match. And blessing upon blessings, they always do. They always match and they always have. But that's not a statistically valid sample size. We're checking 1 race over 3 precincts. Senator Bob Hall is going to introduce legislation to allow us to do a larger audit, if you will, of hand audit of ballots. Because again, once we can get the results in within 24 hours, we've got 2 weeks before we have to certify the results finally and make it official. So being able to audit during that window of time and make sure that we've got accuracy across the county is really important. So that was what the question was. Are we going to use hand marked paper ballots or machine marked paper ballots? The real question for folks that have been interested in this topic has been when you select your topic on the screen, you make your selection on the screen, you print that ballot out. When it comes out to you, you know this, it's got barcodes on it and it's got your selections in English. You always need to look at that and check to make sure that what you think you pressed on the screen is what it reads on the ballot and make sure that your selections are there. But we all know when it goes in the tabulator, it's not reading the English characters on the bottom of the page, it's reading the barcodes at the top. And so folks have said, well, I don't know that barcode matches what's on the bottom. And at first I would tell them every time, I'd say, well, but it does, it matches. And they would ask me, well, how can you prove it to me? And eventually that message got through to me. And I said, well, I really can't prove it to you. I can't read barcode. I don't know that it matches. I can't ever prove it. And that was the point, is I can never prove to you on the front end that barcode says Trump or says Harris. I can never prove that to you. Now we can audit on the back end, and we want to do as much as we can on the back end to make sure if the computer came out with 10 Trumps and 10 Harrises, that's exactly what the English characters also have when we audit that box. But I could never prove it on the front end. So now, if we use a hand-marked paper ballot, you're going to color in the circle, just like you've seen so many times before. And again, the computer's not reading the English. It's looking for that colored in dot, and it's optically scanning it, and then it's going to register that vote. So that's the real question, is what manner of completing the ballot we will use. And then we would use the same tabulator either way. So the vote did not pass. I made a motion that we move to that, and it did not pass. So we're not going to move to that, but let me take the question anyway. If it did, or if it does in the future, and we're going to have to, and we use pencils to hand mark it, I don't know that it requires a colored pencil. I think it just requires a dark pencil that the machine can read. And that is a great point you make. And this is one of the important features of that is you take that, let's say it could be that you didn't color it in dark enough. You didn't color it in the right way. You just made an X, but you didn't really color the whole circle in, or you colored in Trump and Harris. There's lots of ways that you can make human error in coloring that ballot. The beauty of it is when you stick it in the tabulator, if any of those errors have been made, it will kick it right back out and say that this ballot is invalid, and it will give the voter the opportunity. Do you want to correct it or not? Now, as a voter, you could say, I don't want to correct it, just send it through. And you've just spoiled your ballot in that particular race, because now later the ballot board is going to have to look at that and go, he voted for both of them. Well, all right, he didn't vote at all, or whatever it may have been. But the beauty of that is it does kick it out immediately and gives you the opportunity to clean it up before you cast it. So good point. Sir. How do you address hand count? Oh, handicap. We still are required to have that machine, the touchscreen machine. We have to have, every county has to have those, and every county does, or has to have some other manner for those that need assistance. So we would always have at least some of those. Yeah, good question. Okay. My goodness. Okay, great question. So I don't think this is what you're asking, but it's a good opportunity to clarify. If you're voting by mail, that's the exact process that we're talking about voting by hand. Because if you vote by mail, that's what you do now. You fill in the circles and you mail it back in, and then they run it through the tabulator. It would be that system for anybody. That's how we would vote. So we already know that we can do it. Now, what you've described, one voter getting 3 ballots, well, that's completely outside of what's allowed. I don't know the answer to that. That's the best advice you can give her. So if you have any interest in sharing more information with me, I'd be happy to research that more with you specifically to see if we can find out what's going on. That should not happen. And you're right. Oh, well, then it does happen. Okay, so I can't research that here from Dallas County, but you gave the best advice. If she were to turn in 2, she's just committed election fraud. And well, hopefully when they see that she's already cast a vote, when they get the second one, if they have a good system like we do, we track who votes, and we know that you have voted. In fact, in this county, this is not uncommon. Somebody thinks they're going to be traveling, so they ask for a by mail ballot, and then they come election day, they didn't end up going on the trip, and so they'd like to go vote in person. Well, as long as you bring that ballot and turn it in and say, I'm not going to vote this by mail ballot, we will let you vote in person. And if you don't have it anymore, you say, well, it never got to me. I never received it. I was supposed to get one, but I didn't. So I came in person. They'll let you vote a provisional ballot in person. And then they'll check to make sure that your by mail ballot never made its way back in. If it did come back in and you voted in person, you've got a problem. But as long as you only had one cast ballot, you're okay. So we have controls to make sure that it's one person, one ballot. I have no idea why you'd ever have a circumstance where you get 3. But people ask me sometimes, do we have election fraud? And I'll tell you the easiest kind of election fraud you can have would be where a husband and a wife both vote by mail. one passes away in that time frame where the ballot's already gone out, they pass away, the surviving spouse sends both back in. That's election fraud. You can't do that. You can only vote your own ballot, and that's it. And so those are little things that maybe they didn't mean. Maybe they weren't looking for a special place to go to. Maybe it was innocent enough, but we've got to have controls everywhere we can to make sure that our elections are safe and secure, that they're accurate. Great questions. Other questions?
On the emergency preparedness, I noticed that y'all have listed certain countries. Our club's kind of grown and more people interested in getting back and doing emergency start things like that. How can we get involved at the county level or something like that?
Great. How many of you are CERT on the CERT team? I see a couple of hands, others that are interested, and probably almost everybody in the room already has their license. We talked about that at the beginning, and maybe some of you are still working on that. So for those that want to be on the CERT team, then please talk to those in the room that you know that already are, or reach out to me or to my team, and we'll help with that and getting you plugged in. We'd love to have you take a bigger role in that. In addition to this club, there's other groups in the county like Minuteman that are involved in disaster response that you can get involved in, not through the government, that's still on the private side, but fantastic groups. And some of you may already be involved in both. And so we'd love to get you connected to the CERT team, to any of our VOAD teams, volunteer organizations that are active in disasters. There's many of them. Minuteman is just one. And I suspect many of you have been or are involved in other VOAD groups around the county. And so thank you for that. There's lots of ways to get plugged in, and we'd love to see you do that and pursue that. Absolutely. All right, I don't want to step on any questions, but I don't want to linger longer than you want me to. Last call. I'll say this: it is a true pleasure to get to come and speak to the group. Like I said, I was a bit in arrears on my dues. Thank you for the grace of letting me pay my dues and get caught up. My handle is N5NV. And it's been a pleasure to support the group in years past, and thank you for letting me come and speak to you. Anytime I can serve you at the county, I work for you. So reach out to me anytime, and it would be my pleasure to help you navigate any of our services or departments here in Collin County. Otherwise, thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Chris. We really appreciate your time. Yeah, this was fantastic. Thank you so much, Chris. What we're going to do. All right, let's get started with Ron. Repeater update wise, we have been exceptionally busy. So Ron.
Okay. WW2CBI here. So I can see my notes. Okay. Repeater report. Yeah, I will. Okay. Repeater report. UHF Melissa went up there with Lewis, did a little training, and checked the DR2X as it's popping out a PN and Morse at the end. I wish it was just a single dit or a DAW, but you know, it's not the DR2X, so I'm not sure what it is. Might be the SCOM. So we need to explore deeper. And the vines grew up the antenna again. So we did some pruning, and the UPS battery has died, got a red alarm. So be buying new batteries for that so that it handles the power outages. Custer, Virginia, I need to reset the cabinets. And so there's a work party scheduled for this Tuesday, the 17th. Need a couple more volunteers to help us reposition. And I think one of the feet cracked or something like that. And then we're also going to hook up the electrical. So Lance will be there with his electrical setup. And 75380 right here. Check that. That's doing good. Echolink's doing good. Thanks again to Bob, K5CRX. New antenna seems to be great. And then the Fairview proposal. Let me go to the next slide. Sorry, Chief. There we go. So that's a view of the fire station and the tower. And so we did a proposal, did a bunch of walkthroughs and proposal, been working on this for several years, quite a few years actually. And finally got to the point where we got some engagement and Dick Price, N5RKP, who's here tonight. Yeah. Dick was the receiver and caught the pass and ran through all the obstacles and made the goal. Yeah. And even so, that took several months to get through all of that. But the town council approved it, the concept, and the type of infrastructure. Now the construction drawings need to go through the departments for approval. So we need to go through the technical side. And so the construction drawing set got some developments on that. So the package we're going to put together is going to be aligned and pretty much in keeping with the Motorola standards and guidelines for communication sites. So this is the same type of format and structure that the other carriers that are on the tower already submitted. So we're going to look like form, fit, and function, same thing. So it should slip right through. So I'm encouraged about that. And we have a designer, Jim Lemanowski, WA9TKE, who's current with the process and these standards. And we've got the CAD system purchased, installed, licensed, and the templates that we need at hand. So we're ready to rock and roll on starting to put that piece of the project together. And he's also done infrastructure very similar to this, actually, for decades. So he's very comfortable with it. So I've had some long talks with him about it. So that was one of the key objectives I had, was the design, construction drawing, design, and how it was going to fit in with the carriers. Also, the performance of this has to fit in with the carriers. This is, just to be clear, this is not going to HRO, buying a radio, come home, plug it in, and fire it up. No, this is sitting next to Verizon and T-Mobile and never, ever creating any interference, no intermods, nothing, right? No power glitches, you know. So anyway, we'll handle all that. So that's the fun part. That's the challenge I'm really looking forward to. So we think it'll take a few weeks to pull all this together, and we'll review it. And then with Dick as our liaison, we'll go back in and go through the departments and see what the process yields. And then we'll start getting started buying stuff and putting it in. So I'll need some volunteers to help. I was going to have a sign-up sheet tonight, but man, today was just totally hectic. So I'll probably do that on Ham Club Online so that I know that it's members, maybe Discord, but certainly Ham Club Online. And we'll take it from there. So let's see what we're going to do. Go to the next slide. So there'll be an equipment shelter. It's actually like a 20-foot container, and we'll have a sizable portion of that. It's owned and operated by Fairview Police Department. We'll have a locked room inside with all of our equipment. It'll be air conditioned. It won't necessarily be home air conditioning, but you know, it'll be no colder than 45 and no hotter than 85, something like that. The equipment doesn't care. That's fine. And we'll have power disconnects in case we need to move the shelter. So that's something the city is very concerned about, that we don't get totally entrenched. We've got a good antenna count. They said, whatever it is that you ever think you might want, put it in the proposal. They'll review it, and whatever gets approved, then that's it. So go to the council once and that's it. And then installing it, we do in stages, you know, as we decide what we want to do, figure out our protocols, put together our budgets, manpower, etc. So the first thing that will go up is the UHF, and we're putting DMR in addition on that. So I'll be asking for some volunteers to help with the DMR. I've already got one person who's signed up for that. So that'll be fun. And again, just to repeat, and access. So that was a key point. Looks like we're going to have some fairly good access to the equipment, not into the tower. Tower is just like any tower. That's very formal. But to the equipment for doing adjustments and repairs, et cetera, looks like no problem. And again, construction drawing set is the next goal. So that'll be a few weeks. Next slide. And here's what it'll look like on top of the tower. Sort of figuratively speaking, you'll see a dish at the top, the orange circle, that points due north to Melissa. And the square panel in the lower left points to Allen, to the Fairview, to the park repeater that links into the other 4 counties and goes out to the National Weather Service. And then we have a VHF, UHF, and APRS antennas. There'll also be some receiving antennas that don't need to be on the tower for control operators. We want them close so that if they need to drive there, they can. So those will probably go on the container. And with that, turn it back to Dave. You may want to add your own.
No, thanks for the update, Ron. And, big kudos to Ron and Dick both. They've put in a huge amount of effort. I was given the ceremonial responsibility of helping to present to the town council last Tuesday. And frankly, the reception was fantastic. The only questions we got were exceptionally supportive. We did have one interesting question from a councilman. He said, so who's paying for all this? And, I said, well, McKinney Amateur Radio Club is. He got a big smile on his face and voted yes. So, this has been a long slog. It's not done yet. We've got some more paperwork to do, as Ron mentioned. We've got to get our construction drawings together. There's a bit of a timeline on that because what the town council approved included some dates. And so we need to make sure that we hit those dates. After that, we get all of the signatures, we got to start spending money. So the board will be coming to the club because it's going to be more than the board will be able to spend on our own authority. So be prepared. We're going to be asking for things like, feed line, antennas, costs for hiring contractors, because the town will not let us do any licensed work on our own. We will have to use licensed contractors. So, but we've been talking about this now for a couple of years. This shouldn't be a surprise to you guys. We just wanted to make sure you were aware that we'll be coming soon with budget requests. All right. Any questions? Yes, Roger. The deal that we cut with the city is they will allow us to connect into their load panel, to their load center. They will give us 2 15-amp circuits, Ron.
I have no idea.
They'll give us 2 30s and a 20, and they will pay for the electricity. We just have to get the wiring done on our nickel. If nobody has anything else, can I have a motion to adjourn? Sid.